I'm Nia Henna. I am the founder of Net Influencer, the publication that covers the creator economy. And we're bringing you this presentation because we know that creating good tools, good technology, good creator campaigns is just one part of the job when it comes to what we do in the creator economy. But ensuring that your products, your services, your talent, your management company is seen as just as critical as anything else when it comes to reach and impact in this space. And at the same time, we know that the way that consumers and decision makers find information is changing rapidly. So we dug in to figure out what was going on, who's winning in this environment, and what companies and brands can do to stay on top. In a few minutes, I'm going to hand it over to Devesh Khanal, who runs Grow and Convert with his business partner, Benji Hyam. Devesh and his team built the methodology behind the AI search index, and he has insight into what it takes to be able to win when it comes to LLMs and search. But before we get into that data, I want to run a quick pop quiz. So I'm going to ask a couple true or false questions. Drop your answers in the chat, either a T or F. Don't overthink it. Just go with your gut. The point isn't to get them right. The point is to see where the room is at as a starting place for the conversation. So the first question I have is, if you check your website analytics and you see almost no traffic from ChatGPT, that means that ChatGPT isn't sending traffic to your company. True or false? Please drop that in the chat. Okay, we got a false. Cool. So a couple responses false, and yes, that's absolutely right. And Devesh has some interesting data on why that's the case, and it will change the way you think about how LLMs influence buying decisions. Next question is, the best way to get your company recommended by ChatGPT is to make technical changes to your website so AI can read it better. True or false? Feel free to hit T or F here. Okay. And yes, again, the answer here is false. And unfortunately, there's an entire industry selling services that do exactly this. Most of this is busy work, and Devesh will show you what actually works on today's webinar. And the last question is, everybody says Reddit is what AI uses to recommend companies. So if you want to get cited by ChatGPT or other LLMs, you should be posting on Reddit. True or false? Okay. So this one.
Okay. Sorry for the technical difficulties. We are ready to go. So I'm one of the co-founders of Grow and Convert. So we've been a content agency for 10 years. We started off in SEO, and in the past 2 or 3 years, we've been focused more on AI search as it has picked up, and we've noticed that pickup in the last couple of years. That's what we're going to talk about today, just so that you guys know who we are. You know, a bunch of brands, some of them well-known like LastPass and Patreon, a bunch of others across software, services, legal, medical, and a key detail is what we've been focused on from the beginning, even when it was just SEO, before ChatGPT came out years ago, was doing marketing, specifically content and search-based marketing, from a conversion perspective first. And we developed this framework called Pain Point SEO, which it itself has sort of taken off, and it has sort of this brand recognition. And we're bringing that thinking into AI search. And that, in talking to Nee for the creator economy space, it feels like he was saying, hey, there's a lot of people in the creator economy space, whether it be folks in influencer and creator economy agencies or software, that also are wondering about AI search. How do we get mentioned there? How do I get ultimately leads, qualified leads and sales there? And so we felt like this would be really educational. So we're going to talk about that. But first, I wanted to talk about the impact of AI search. And the first true or false question sort of alluded to this, and I want to talk about this. There is, in talking to marketers, sometimes this question of, hey, when I look at my web analytics, I don't see that much traffic from these AI tools. This is a client of ours, an incumbent in their space, a very well-known brand in our space. And in this time frame, you see the ChatGPT traffic from just ChatGPT is kind of in the hundreds. It was growing across 2025. The shape of this is what everyone is seeing, which is that traffic graph growing. But if you look at it, you're like, okay, it's in the hundreds. In the same time period, if you look at the Google organic traffic, traditional SEO traffic, it's in the tens of thousands, 16,000 in a month, 11,000 in a month. So there's this question of, well, hold on, should I care about this? Should we be optimizing for this? And here is this key math I want you guys to keep in mind, that everyone, I think, brands should be keeping in mind. Fine, Google traffic 10,000, ChatGPT was in the hundreds, but that is what you can measure. Those 500 numbers here are the amount of visitors that Google Analytics or whatever your analytics program could measure. That means it's people who click on sources when they're on ChatGPT and end up on an article on your site. So then you have to ask yourself, when I use AI, whether it be ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, whatever, how often do I click on sources? And if you just do quick math, if you in your own usage click on sources about 1 in 20 times, that's 10,000. It's already equal. And if it's actually maybe 1 in 50 uses, that's even higher. So this is why it matters, is that AI is a different beast. Google pre-AI. Now, obviously, Google's, regular Google search even has the AI features. But before that, regular SEO was Google just presenting the search results. It said, I don't have the answer to your question, but here are a bunch of really authoritative websites that do. And so it was just sending traffic to your site. But AI will answer the question by itself. And so the actual usage we are blind to as marketers, as brands. But it doesn't mean that that's not happening. Right? That's where people are asking these questions. So then let's get to the meat of it. So how do I get ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini to mention my brand when a user asks it a relevant question in that space? So the start of this is what we have heard from our seat as folks in this AI search and traditional search, like search marketing community online. What everyone seems to be talking about when it comes to this AIO, GEO is things to tweak your website. It's extremely relevant. There was this huge thing in 2025 where everyone's talking about llms.txt. In fact, just yesterday, I saw something else on LinkedIn where people were like, yeah, that's like the number one thing. You got to make sure you have an llms.txt file. You don't really need to worry if you're like, what is that? Don't really worry about it. It's basically this supposed text file you put on your website so that the crawlers of ChatGPT and OpenAI and all can see and understand what the website's about. It like explains it to them. It's the AI search analogy of robots.txt. Or people say things like, you need to reword your subheadlines and all of your content as questions because AI likes question and answer. Add a FAQ or bullet point summary of your content to sort of help explain it to them. These are all on-site tweaks. And the problem is, when you think about what an LLM is, the reason AI is taking over the world is that LLMs understand natural language just fine, like humans. They also scraped the entire internet and all written works in human history in order to initially train these things. So much so that they are fighting lawsuits for people on copyright infringement, OpenAI and all. They don't need help understanding the content on your site. They can pass the LSAT, not because someone bullet point summarized dense legal textbooks. They can certainly read your marketing site. And so there has to be something else. And in fact, here's a funny little anecdote of folks, and I hope a guy named Matt Kenyon is not on the call here, but the folks are literally talking about things like llms.txt and saying here in the same post where they recommend it, no major LLM vendor currently consumes it. We don't have evidence, but you should just kind of do it anyways. And I think that's an evidence of when you don't know what to do, you sort of are trying to find something to do that feels tangible. So let's talk about what actually works. We want to influence the LLM's decision on what it recommends when our target customers are searching for something relevant. So there's two ways to do this. And folks on the webinar, if you're pretty advanced and have done a lot of research on how LLMs work, I want to caveat, this is not strictly speaking true, but this is a very, very good and very close to accurate mental model that'll get you far. So yes, there's technically different, more complex ways, but there's two things that you should be thinking about. The training data, obviously, right? If you are in the training data, and I'll talk about how it's unclear what that means, then of course, like you're influencing what the LLM associates with concepts like an influencer marketing agency, UGC management platform, and things that are relevant in your space, or web search. So these are the two major ways. You can either be already associated with a topic space, like your brand name can be associated with that in the training data. That's gold. Or you can have content that shows up when the LLM searches the web. So here, what we have come up with and what we apply to our clients that we wanted to share is there's actually an order of priority that has the highest impact for brands looking to influence LLMs. And so that's what I'm going to go through. And we actually think you got to start with the content that shows up on web search, because you can actually control this. And the training data, to get into the training data of these LLMs, it's a black box. You just don't know how to, they don't release that. OpenAI doesn't say, this is exactly what's included in our training data for obvious reasons, right? It's extremely private to them. Also, they probably scrape a bunch of things they're not supposed to scrape. Like we saw a bunch of news stories on this. So this is just a total black box. And it's also the goal of your long-term marketing. Every brand long-term wants to be the incumbent in their space, right? It's like, LLMs know without having to do a web search that when you say the word CRM, Salesforce is associated with it. You want to do that, but that's like decades of marketing and brand building. So this is the thing that you can control and happens on a short-term effect, okay? So there's two ways to do it, which is you can have your own content rank in traditional web search that the LLMs can find when they crawl the web or search the web to supplement their answers, or you can be mentioned in other people's content that's ranking on the web. And these are the foundation of the house, and the priority, you sort of go bottom up. And only if you've really exhausted that do you think it's even worth your time to worry about this. So that's kind of this grouping. These two is expose your brand to LLMs via traditional SEO. So that's the foundation of it. That's the core concept. Now, the question becomes, okay, fine, Devesh, you saying we need content on our site that ranks for it. That's fine. What kind of content? It's not what a lot of people are used to, like your existing muscle memory of content. It's probably not that. The content that most brands, B2B brands, are used to producing are this informational, what we call top of funnel content. In your space, it would be like an intro guide to influencer marketing or something like this. That's classic content marketing in your space. That's not as relevant. What will help you in influencing the LLMs to get them to recommend your brand when a user is asking for something relevant is bottom of funnel, product related or service related content. Okay. And here are some examples. So I'm going to start with an example for our business and then move it to influencer marketing. For our business, we're like, let's say a content marketing agency. If a user asks ChatGPT, I want to grow my software business with content marketing, how should I get started? It's not going to mention agencies. It's just going to answer the question. That's true for you guys as well. If a user asks ChatGPT for general strategy help with creators, with influencer marketing, it's not going to say, hey, go talk to this agency. That would be nice. It's not so easy. It's just going to answer that question. That query will start and end inside ChatGPT. So therefore, and this is a big phase shift, step change compared to the Google SEO world. that it's like, I want to slow down and mention that, is in traditional Google, you did get traffic from these informational queries. And that's how everyone talked about content marketing in the past, is Google didn't used to, they're not going to just answer the question. Again, now Google has its own AI at the top, but pre that, that's not how SEO worked. It just had to give you websites. It didn't answer the question itself at all. And so then you could be like, oh, we're gonna create this guide on influencer marketing. So then when someone from a big D2C brand is asking about it, then they're gonna rely on our guide. And then you have this chance of, explaining it and being really helpful. And then they're like, oh, who's this brand? Maybe we should work with them. That was that story. And that's not gonna happen in AI search anymore. So instead, if they ask, in our case, okay, now I want to hire an agency to do this for me. What does it do almost every single time? Searching the web. And here it is in influencer marketing. I'm looking for a good influencer marketing agency to work with to find influencers, blah, blah, blah. Searching for, and it'll even tell you this. I don't need to probably tell you this. Every single person who's used ChatGPT has seen this. You can ask for it. You can check it with simple consumer queries that were relevant to your immediate day-to-day life. Ask it for shoes, right? Ask it for sunglasses. It'll search the web. And then if you ask for an agency, it'll search the web. Why? Because not just ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, all of these LLMs, they know that when someone's asking for product or service related recommendations, brand recommendations in a space, that its training data alone is outdated. It's not enough. So they know that in order to be the go-to place for the billion users that use this, actually, I don't think it's that high, the millions of users that use AI, their AI tools, they need to supplement with searching the web. Otherwise, people will only use Google because Google has that latest information. That's your avenue to influence them. And this is ChatGPT. There are AI search and LLMs and GEO is not limited to ChatGPT and all. Actually, Google itself, from all of our data, as per the analytics graphs I showed at the beginning, is still the leader in terms of traffic. People still use Google the most. And there also now, there's the AI overview that answers a lot of the questions before you get down to the bottom actual blue links, right? The SEO rankings. And if I search here, best influencer marketing agencies, it's sort of recommending things here. So you don't need to go down to the articles below. Some people still do. A lot of people still do. But this is a very impactful space. And if you notice, Higher Influence is one of the recommended ones, and they have an article here as well. And I'm curious, actually, if someone from Higher Influence is on the webinar. So these are even more reliant on search results. Google AIO, Perplexity, AI Mode, those are even more than ChatGPT. They're just, I'm going to look at the search results and summarize it for you. It's even in the name. It's literally called the AI overview. It's an overview of the search results underneath. And so in both cases, this existing content that ranks for relevant SEO terms, traditional SEO terms, is the most relevant lever that you can pull to influence LLMs to get them to mention you by brand name. And so that's why we recommend, let's start here. Start at your own content ranking for it. And side question, if you're wondering, well, why not just get my name in other people's content? So the example here would be like this data ally or this post. Can I not reach out and get, my agency mentioned here in influencer marketing? You absolutely can. Tier 2 is absolutely relevant. There's just a nuanced reason in tier 1, simply because one, most people don't know how to do that. They don't have that. If you have the kind of, organizational ability to reach out and have do those campaigns, feel free. Number 2, and this is important, in your own content, you have the ability to lay out the details of why your brand is differentiated, your value props, the use cases where you shine, the different types of customers and their pain points that are relevant. And this, I want to transition to this of why that's relevant. Those details in AI search are extremely important, okay? Why? Again, Google, people type in really short keywords, whereas in AI search, they have these really detailed conversations. So in Google, people will be like influencer management platform. And Google has no idea whether the person Googling it has a $100 million business or is just starting. Mom and pop e-commerce shop that wants to like use influencers or something. It has no idea. So it'll serve largely speaking, the same results to everyone. Some geography differences, but largely. Because it just doesn't old school Google SEO doesn't have that context. But AI search is different. In AI search, people don't type in these short phrases. They have long conversations. We know this. The clients we've gotten from ChatGPT, we've asked them, can you share the chat with us? They have long conversations with it. They're not just going in and be like content marketing agency, enter, or like GEO agency. They're saying, hey, like I got these problems in my business. Here's how it goes and all of this. And even without the long conversation, even if they type something short in, LLMs have all the previous context. It knows the business, it knows the problems, it knows their budget, anything that the user has already shared with the LLM. So the way it recommends, the way these ChatGPT will decide what influencer management platform, agency, whoever to recommend is based so much more on the details than Google used to be. And we represent that. We sort of coined this in-house. We call this concept invisible prompts. Is that people we've noticed in marketing tend to are thinking about AI prompts the same way as people used to think about SEO keywords. And a lot of the tools, a lot of you on the webinar may be already using tools like Peak and Profound and all. They sort of are built in that way, in that old school SEO way. And we think that's fundamentally not right. It's not how AI search works. Because if somebody for us says like find a content agency, you can't go in and check in ChatGPT and type that exact prompt in and get the same result as them. No, because the LLM actually has all this information about them and it'll give them a specific answer. Here's a real example. This is an actual client of ours today. She owns a business loan funding company. And she said, I found you on ChatGPT. We had a great conversation. She's a great client. And we said, hey, Nicole, can you send us the chat for our own education? She said, sure. The prompt she asked to start it off, what are the best SEO companies in your opinion who've driven massive results with endless leads for people in our kind of space? She didn't even specify her kind of space. And it responds, great question. For business funding company like yours, where these high intent keywords are relevant, whatever, it recommends us first. And it cites these really specific things. Strength, they have real case studies where they 10x the lead volume for SaaS and B2B. So it has this context where it's like, okay, you need high intent keywords. You need this, you need that. Try this agency because they've published this stuff. And I know that they have that. I know that they have those characteristics that you're looking for. I typed in the exact same thing as her into an incognito window, logged out of ChatGPT just to see. And I even helped it along because our kind of space doesn't make sense without the context. I even said in the business loan funding space. It gave me a completely different response. Grow and convert is nowhere mentioned. It just is completely irrelevant. So if I just use this in my track, I would think, okay, like we don't have any exposure. We don't have any AI visibility for keywords like this. Not true. We got a great lead that closed and is a client of ours from this. And so this is that detail argument I'm talking about. So that has relevance. That has an immediate impact on your content strategy as marketers, as brands. It means the old SEO way was, oh, like we need a big domain authority. We need a big brand. Look at the SERP. It's all these people with big domains. We need to build links and all of this. There's some relevance there because SEO influences GEO, as we talked about. But the reality here is LLMs are recommending stuff, products, services in great detail based on like this close match to what is the user situation. That means your job becomes your content that you're publishing, it needs to connect those dots. It needs to position your brand, product, service as the solution to these highly specific situations. The exact user, the use case, the scenario, the pain points. Say, oh, we have a solution for this. Look, we have this. Our service works like this, or we have this product feature. That's how you need to do it. We call this idea your topic map. It is the sort of AI map of all these different kind of use cases and situations where you would want LLMs to recommend your brand as a solution to that user. So that's kind of the core of the strategy. If we go into actually executing, let's start and just go through the different tiers of the pyramid and just do some practical stuff. So for your own content, you could be like, okay, Davis, that's fine. Like, just give me something specific. Like, what should I publish? That means, first of all, you focus on bottom of funnel product related keywords, SEO keywords to go after, not how to set up influencer marketing campaigns, but rather best influencer marketing agencies. Because this variations of these keywords is what the LLMs will Google, what the LLMs will search when they're searching the web to answer the user's question. Not how to set up and not UGC best practices. By the way, like, grain of salt, it doesn't mean there's literally zero utility. Google still exists, right? Like, people still do that, and there could be some secondary. But from a prioritization standpoint, you got to, if you don't have anything on your site from a marketing standpoint going after keywords like best influencer marketing agencies, when you're an influencer marketing agency, like, what are we doing? Why are we here? Right? Like, you need to shoot your shot on goal for this first. And then what I just talked about in terms of this detail of it recommending products closely match, then that content needs to be extremely detailed in order for you to have that match the way ChatGPT recommended us to that business phone lending funding client. That means that content can't just be like, here's a sparse list of agencies, including our brand name. No, that's not going to work. It could work a little bit, but that's not going to help you when someone's like, hey, I have a D2C brand of this exact size. I have this much budget. I'm in this location, in this space. What are influencer marketing agencies that, let's say, have successful case studies in my space? What's ChatGPT going to do? ChatGPT is going to go and Google for those case studies. It doesn't know that from its training data. That's all we talked about already. So if you don't have content that positions yourself like this, then too bad. Then you're not going to show up. You need that so that you can connect those dots for ChatGPT, and it can say, "Oh, look, I found this agency. They have case studies exactly like your scenario." That's how you win there. So then we go to tier 2 of the pyramid. So that's your own content. And again, like I said, you have this open canvas on your own content. The tier 2 offsite mentions, you can get yourself mentioned in other people's content, as we talked about. The one caveat I'll mention here, and that was one of the true or false questions at the beginning too. Most people are just like, okay, so like, I need a Reddit campaign. I need a Reddit strategy. Maybe. So there's a lot of people who publish these stuff of like the top sources that AIs use, and it's always Reddit and Wikipedia at the top, YouTube, Google. We call these kind of general sites. We analyzed the citations across, I don't know, it was like hundreds of citations or thousands across a bunch of different of our clients. And we grouped them into those general sites like Reddit, Wikipedia, and industry specific sites. And 86% were industry specific sites, were the sites that are cited, and only 14% are Reddit, Wikipedia. But there's nuance here. So in the reports that you may have seen that Net Influencer and Nee shared, that he'll share again, for the term or a bunch, I think it was like 5 to 10 prompts that we search around the topic area of influencer marketing platforms. Yes, Reddit was the #1 cited domain. But for influencer marketing agencies, look at and if you can't read this, I'll read it out loud. It could be small font for you guys on the webinar. The most cited domains: Data Ally, Influencer Hero, Jive PR, Fresh Content Society, Join Brands. There's no Reddit at all. So our recommendation here is, don't just rely on this sort of marketers touting on LinkedIn, hey, like, you got to get on Reddit if you want to be an AI. You may, if you're trying to get into topics like influencer marketing platforms, it seems like Reddit is actually really, relevant. So it could help you. But for influencer marketing agencies, this was searched across 5 different LLMs, from ChatGPT to Gemini to Google AI Overview to Perplexity.
And I think it's something between 5 to 10 different prompts asking about this in different ways, not just one way, in different wordings. And Reddit is not in the top 10 of the most cited domains. It's industry specific sites. So if you're going to do this offsite mention type, hey, mention our brand, we'll mention your type of exchange and PR, be very careful to look at, okay, here are the prompts that we want to be showing up for and visible for. What are the most cited domains? It's not automatically Reddit. And then only after all of that does it even make sense in our minds to think about this content tweak stuff. And still, we think it's not really necessary. We have been doing this and getting our clients on, AI search for a long time, and we just don't even worry about this. As I said at the beginning, it qualitatively and functionally does not make sense. LLMs don't need help digesting your content. They understand natural language the way humans do. They already have understood this. Yes, it's low effort, but the final thing is, so like, if you want to do it, it's low effort, fine, right? If it makes the CEO happy, if it makes the CTO or whoever happy, fine. But my last caveat is, if this is your only GEO strategy, good luck, because it's going to be tough. That's it. And I'll pass it back to Nee, and then we can open it up to some questions.
Thank you, Devesh. Thank you, Devesh. Appreciate that. And again, this is where most webinars would end. Speaker would wave goodbye and say good luck out there, and you would go back to your inbox, and then an hour later, you would have forgotten probably about an hour about 80% of what Devesh has shared. And so we don't want that to happen with this webinar. So we built 4 things to make sure you can act on the information that was shared today. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Just a second. Go. Cool. So the 4 things that we have to share today are, one, our insight document. So the AI Visibility Index is the index that we partnered with Grow and Convert on to do the deep dive into the creator economy companies to understand who was ranking across 6 different categories. We would like to share the full report with you guys. And so the one thing that we want to pull out of this report is the fact that it's still super early. Viral Nation is a company that has the most exposure across multiple different categories. But if you look at the long tail of each of these categories, there are definitely businesses and organizations that are not necessarily creator economy endemic that have gotten high visibility. So I look at UGC agencies with Brighter Click with 43% exposure, Avenue Z at 46% exposure as well. That just shows you that it's still super early. And so we'd like to kind of send out this report so you can have a sense of where you rank today. So we'll go ahead and send that information out to you guys via email. The next thing we'd like to offer today is Tracker. So Tracker is the actual research tool that Grow and Convert and Devesh's team has built. It's how they ran the study. You can point this at your company. It can show you the visibility scores across the top AI platforms, the prompts that you're showing up for, and the prompts what your competitors are, where your competitors are winning and where you're not showing. And so this is free access to everybody on this webinar. I will put the URL to the tool in the chat, and you'll have 7 days free to be able to go ahead and use this tool to be able to do a deep dive on your own website, your own campaigns, to understand how you're ranking, where you're ranking when it comes to the LLMs. So this is probably the offer that's the most compelling for the folks on the call. And so this is a free strategy audit covering your AI visibility on traditional search channels. And so if you don't have the time to do the audit yourself, put in your search queries, Devesh's team will load up Tracker for you, and they will take you through a deep dive on the platform to show you where you stand, where your competitors are winning, and what your strategy looks like and what your visibility looks like when it comes to the AI search. This is normally a paid engagement, but we're making it free for everybody on this call. And to book this, you can email Devesh. His email is here. The subject line should be Net Influencer Strategy Audit, and then they'll go ahead and get you scheduled for there. Because this is obviously a time-intensive thing, we're going to go ahead and run this offer with Grow and Convert until the end of Business Friday. So if this is something that you want to take advantage of, please take advantage of it quickly, since the team has a limited amount of capacity for these calls. And we want the people who've invested the time in this webinar to come live to be able to take advantage of this offer. And then lastly, we know that everybody's busy. And so knowing what to do is one thing, actually doing it is a completely other thing. And so everybody has a marketing team, everybody has a comms team, everybody has a PR team. You know, we all have their own priorities. They have their own priorities, and asking them to think about AI SEO is a whole nother track that needs to be added to that. And so in the case where you've decided like, hey, this is something that's important to us, but we don't have the time or bandwidth, that's where the Grow and Convert comes in. And then this offer, Devesh's whole team will handle that whole stack. They'll be able to content that ranks for these AI prompt uses. So do the citation work to make sure you get mentioned in the sources for your category. And they'll run tracker against your visibility each week so that you have a good sense of where you are. You get the reports and they handle the execution. So for people on this webinar, Devesh and his team has put together a special offer. It's not available on the website. It's only available if you mention Net Influencer when you reach out to them. The path for this is the same as the audit. Email Devesh, they'll get you set up with that free audit. They'll go through your campaigns and your account. And then after that one, once they complete that, if you're interested in working with them, they'll have that conversation and offer for you as well. So the 4 things to recap for everybody on this call is: 1, you'll get the inbox, the findings from the creator economy AI analysis in your inbox. 2, the tracker free trial. The link is here in the chat. We'll also send that out via email. 3, the strategy audit. That's something that you can take advantage of to see where you are in terms of your visibility when it comes to AI search. And then lastly, if you want this to be done for you, obviously that's exactly what Grow and Convert focus on, and then be happy to help you if that's something that you or your team is interested in. So with that, we'll go ahead and shift things to Q&A. We'll bring Devesh back on the screen and start to answer some of the questions that have come in. So first question here.
Yeah, I was reading this while you were talking to me. So what I'm hearing from Jason, and Jason, feel free to kind of expand. I'll keep an eye on the chat or that thread in the Q&A. But what I read from this question is, could companies, could brands basically create a massive amount of spam content, AI generated, to sort of give LLMs this sort of obscene amount of context and kind of drown out their competitors? People are doing this. If I'm reading your question correctly, Jason, people are doing this and it has not gone well. Basically, it's, could I just create thousands of pieces of content that are AI generated, and that can basically, like, trick the LLMs into thinking I'm most relevant? What we have seen, and there's been multiple studies published, and in fact, I can actually post one of the links to this in the Q&A for you, Jason, and anyone else who's listening. Google itself is cracking down hard on sites that are publishing low quality AI content. And so I just published one study in here in that thread. Everyone is noticing those sites will get an initial uptick, perhaps for months, in SEO traffic, and then it falls down. So Google's algorithm is really smart. Why? Why are they doing this? Because Google's lifeblood, and Google is a really important player here, like I mentioned, because they both own SEO and have for 3 decades, and they're a major player in AI. And so their lifeblood is giving their users the best information possible. If people start to associate Google's results, whether it be their traditional search or the AI overview, AI mode, or Gemini, if people start to associate, oh, those are just filled with a bunch of spam, people will use Google less. And that's their, billion-dollar business at stake. And so, and they're very smart. Like the initial thing of GPT, it came from Google's like research laboratories that everything else is kind of built on, these sort of large language models. And their algorithm is smart enough to kind of detect that low quality content. And so it's in their interest to sort of remove that from their search. And as per everything I talked about,
being present in traditional web search is the key for you to be present from the LLMs to discover you. So if you get wiped off the face of the map by Google, it will hurt your AI search long term. And there's another actual specific context. There's a second reason. I mentioned in the presentation what's really important is the details of mapping your product, service, solution, features, strengths to specific customer scenarios. ChatGPT can't do that for you if you ask it or if you ask Claude or whatever to write your content for you. It doesn't know that context. The best people to do that are folks inside your organization. Now, it doesn't mean literally your like salesperson needs to take their time to start writing content. That doesn't make sense. But it means if a human, whether it be your agency, your freelancer, or your internal content team, is writing this, they can interview the sales team. That's what we do in our process with our clients. We interview the sales team and then bring that kind of nuance into the content. You can't really reproduce that well with AI generated content.
Awesome. Next question, also from Jason. What's the difference between on-site tactics and owned content?
Yeah, this could be a bit nuanced. I sort of use both of those terms. They're completely different. What I mean by on-site tactics is tweaks to your sort of site setup. So adding, or tweaks to your content. That's why I call them like content tweaks in some of the diagrams. So you, let's say, have your content to rank for best influencer marketing agencies, like as an example I was talking about. The on-site tweaks would be, let's add some bullet points, or let's change the subheading or the H2s to this Q&A format, or let's add an FAQ at the end. The content itself is just, on-site content is having that post, is having done the strategy to say, this keyword is relevant to us for AI search, and let's produce a really high quality piece of content on it. That's good. That will help. But the tweaks are then going back through your entire body of content, and instead of sort of figuring out, okay, what else do we need to produce? Is this good enough? Of tweaking things like adding bullet points and FAQs and things like that. That stuff is not as relevant. As long as the content is good. To, improve the content. If you go back through and say, hey, based on this presentation or whatever, we realize that we have a lot of shallow content, that we don't get into the details of the use cases and the features that are relevant to our customer. Sure. That's just, I would call that like just improving your content and having better owned content, for example. But if you're going in and saying, I'm going to tweak this headline or whatever, those are not as relevant. Or add llms.txt. That's what I'm saying is not as relevant. That's tier 3.
Okay.
The next question I see is from David. Does domain authority and site structure still matter at all? Or is it purely an offsite content PR play? It does matter in a secondary way. So I'm going to discuss those two things separately. Domain authority. Domain authority still matters for regular SEO. And as I talked about in this talk, regular SEO matters. We're seeing the clients that have a really strong SEO, traditional SEO presence, their numbers in Tracker for AI visibility are just significantly higher. So domain authority still matters in that respect. There's also kind of a secondary thing, which is the LLMs seem to sort of favor the brands that are most known, but that's sort of related. Site structure, you could mean a lot of different things from site structure, but as long as, here's my take on this, as long as your site and sitemap and structure are navigatable, like normal for a human, from everything we have read and seen, LLMs will also be able to handle that just fine, as long as it's sort of like logical and makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Couple more questions. For a business in the creator economy, what's the low-hanging fruit we should target first to get things going?
I would literally reduce it to your top 3 most sort of product or brand-centric searches someone could search on Google. Literally for AI search, I would reduce it that way, because that's kind of the vibe I'm getting from this question. What is the lowest hanging fruit? We have talked to so many companies across so many spaces, in our conversations, in our sales conversations, and they're saying, hey, like, it's not working. How do we get mentioned? And the absolute basics of what I talked about today, they have not even started or touched, which is, if you just off the top of your head, you could probably take 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute to think of this. What are the top 3 things someone could Google to look for a company like ours? My running example, influencer marketing agency, influencer marketing UGC platform. Just the most common sense things. I would say 80 to 90% of brands we talk to do not have, outside of their homepage, maybe their homepage goes after one of them, do not have dedicated URLs on their site or pieces of content to go after them. And that's what you should do. It does not require fancy SEO software or GEO visibility software. It doesn't require anything sort of that most marketing departments or brands would have, and most people haven't done it. And if you've done that, expand that number from 3 to 10. If you get to 10, 15 of your absolute most, common sense keywords that someone would Google, to that where you're like, we should absolutely be recommended here. We should be, we're an option that anyone in the company would agree was like, this is, if we could rank for these 10, that would be amazing. And if you have boom, boom, like a dedicated piece for every single one of them, you will be ahead of 99% of your competition. Trust me, because we probably are talking to them. And we see that and we're just like, you haven't even done this. That I love that question.
Okay. Question from Samantha. So, does tier 2 require formal partnerships, collaborations with those platforms or partners to be effective? Or, or can brands and agencies still benefit organically by creating own content on platforms like Reddit, contributing value-driven content?
Yeah, there's 2 questions in this. Great question. On the first half, do you need formal partnerships, collaborations? Absolutely not. So we have we have a partner that helps us do this for all of our clients and ourselves, and they just use traditional outreach, and we get those outreach emails. Actually, we don't like sub in stuff in our content on our site, but we get those outreach emails as well. So you could just, it's like, Samantha, it's like traditional SEO backlink type outreach that is still relevant. You can still reach out to them and say, hey, we'd love to be, I noticed you have an article on top whatever, we'd like to be mentioned. We have this brand, whatever. And then a lot of things happen. Sometimes they ask for, okay, mention our brand in yours. Very sort of normal. It's up to you whether you want to do that. Some of them may actually just have a fee. Sure, $500 if it's like a content-based site or whatever. So it doesn't need to be formal in that respect. Then the second question was, on Reddit, does it make sense to have the brand having their owned accounts? Let me read this very carefully. Can brand agencies still benefit organically by creating owned accounts on platforms like Reddit? This one, I'm going to reserve the right to sort of take what I'm saying with a grain of salt here, because there's a lot of technical Reddit nuance where I don't want to pretend I'm the absolute expert. My understanding is, yes, that is still beneficial. From what we've seen, people are doing 2 things on Reddit. One is this, which is the brand has their own brand account. A lot of people have their own subreddit they've created. It's not necessarily the brand's name. So for Grow and Convert, we could have a subreddit of like, AI search or whatever subreddit, which probably already exists. But brands create that and they sort of answer these questions. And we've heard anecdotally from some folks that are doing that it seems to be helping. A lot of this is a little bit woo-woo-y. And then the other thing is kind of the opposite of what you're asking that people are doing, which is they hire an agency that basically has a bunch of people all over the world with Reddit accounts and ask them to comment on relevant threads or whatever. That I should note, probably it violates Reddit terms of service. It definitely falls in the gray hat thing. We also, from just being in the community, know a ton of people are doing it. So that's that one. Also a great question.
Okay. And then the last question for today is, we're an agency. Any specific strategies we can share with the creators that we represent? Is there a GEO play for that's specific to creators or for creators?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I haven't thought of that. So an individual creator. Ooh. I'm going to answer this in two ways. Number one, yeah, I don't see why an individual creator couldn't execute the process that we discussed, that I present, that we say we do for our clients, that we just discussed today. In theory, they could do this. But I think in general, that is not practical for an individual creator. Like I would ask them to at first just be like, where do you want to be mentioned? For what prompts? I guess, are people asking ChatGPT, like, what are the top creators? Yeah, I guess that's relevant. The second way to do it that I think is probably more relevant, like, is an individual creator really going to execute this careful SEO strategy? Like, as I just said, most big brands, like multi-million-dollar brands and companies that we've talked to with dedicated marketing departments, aren't doing it properly. I just don't see it. So in theory, an individual creator could do it. If I decided to become an influencer, I would probably do it myself. But like, are most people going to do it? No. The other one is they just have to grow their brand. So again, all of the principles I mentioned apply. If they want to show up when someone's asking, hey, what are the top creators in the like fashion space or in the tech product, consumer electronic space or whatever, and they want their name to be shown up so they get those deals, they need to grow their brand. So traditional PR, and sort of the natural things that they do, their collaborations and their natural brand building should help them with that. If they want to supplement it with a very specific GEO tactic, like they could have their own website and kind of create these pieces. It will work, but I just don't see that as something that an individual creator would do. Feel free to email me on this if you have specific questions. This is actually a really interesting one.
Awesome. Cool. So that brings us to the end. Last 30 seconds before we call out. If there's anything you heard today and you would like to know what's next, let us know. If you want the full data and finding for the Creator Economy AI Visibility Report, that will be in your inbox tomorrow. So nothing to do there. Just watch your email. If you want to see where your company actually stands in those rankings, and you can sign up for Tracker tonight. The link is in the chat. We'll also have that in the follow-up email. If you want Devesh's team to pull this together and walk you guys through it, email Devesh directly by Friday, mention Net Influencer. And again, that follow-up information will be in that email. And lastly, if you want to partner with an organization that understands this, is thinking about this day in and day out, that's exactly what Grow and Convert does. With that, Devesh, anything you want to leave the audience with?
Yeah, no, just we love having these discussions. If you have very specific questions that you want to answer, I'm happy to just answer them. Just send me an email, Devesh, DEVESH @growandconvert.com. But this has been really fun. So thanks for attending.
Awesome. Devesh, appreciate you. Great session. And thanks everybody for coming. The recording will go out tomorrow. And yeah, have a great rest of the day. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.